talk about the other two kinds of movements. The other one is isolation movements. Now, isolation movements I find only really has its place as a secondary factor to compound movements. So if you are a healthy individual, whether you're a beginner, intermediate or advanced, I believe that at least 80% of your program should encompass compound movements, majority. You can still do split training if you like the split kind of training methodology, which means split training basically means you split your body up into different groups. You can have like a chest and arms day, or like a legs day, or a back day, or whatever kind of way that you would like to train. But isolation movements, I think, only have their place as assisting compound movements. So depending on what you want to achieve, I would mainly hit the bulk of the session using compound movements that, if you're targeting a certain area of your body, you majority hit that part of your body with using compound movements. And then isolation movements, let me give you a quick definition, would be if you isolate a certain part of your body, you isolate a certain muscle, you're not working more than one muscle, you're basically focusing on one muscle, and it doesn't run over more than one joint. So for example, a bicep curl, if I want to be doing a bicep curl, I'm isolating the front part of my arm, when obviously if I do the eccentric and the concentric movement, I'm mostly focusing on just the one muscle and the one part of my arm. So if you are a bodybuilder, or if you need to do some sort of rehabilitation work, then isolation training becomes a lot more important. However, if you're not a bodybuilder and you don't have the time to spend in the gym doing hours and hours of training, your time is much better spent using compound movements, where you can stimulate the parts of your body that you want to, whilst stimulating other parts simultaneously, and therefore getting a much greater effect. So if there's certain parts of your body that you want to focus on, throw those isolation movements in. I would suggest after you've done most of your compound movements. If you've got isolation and compound movements in the same program, always do your compound movements first. When your body is basically at the beginning of every session, you're going to be as recovered, the most recovered obviously in the beginning. After doing a certain warm-up, then I would make sure that you do those compound movements first and leave your isolation exercises to the end. The only other kind of muscle contraction that I wanted to be talking about is something called isometric contractions, which basically means that your muscle is working without any movement happening. So the most common example of isometric movements is your plank. You are holding your body, its integrity. You're trying to make sure that your body doesn't hunch over. You're trying to keep that nice straight back and straight spine, but you are hanging your body kind of in a mid-air, because your toes are in contact with the ground, your hands or your elbows are in contact with the ground, and everything in between kind of needs to be held up in order for you to keep that nice straight posture.